Welcome in. Hey there, Travis here with Free Living Goals, having a conversation with Tom Mercer, who retired at 27 years old. So, Tom, retiring at 27. This sounds unbelievable. What does that even mean? How is that even possible? Most people are hoping to be lucky to retire in their lifetime at 60 or 65. I've never heard of anyone retiring so young. So, yeah, what does that mean? How is that possible?
Well, Travis, thanks for having me. So, for me, early retirement is all about freedom, and it's actually possible for just about anyone living in a country like America. What a lot of people think when they hear retirement is that, you're 65 and you don't really do anything after that. But for me and for a lot of the early retirement community, it's a very different idea. It's much more about the freedom to do what you want and not have to work a job for money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So how does the money work? How do you get to a point where you're quitting the day job? How does that happen?
Okay, so I think of it as a game, and basically the objective of this game is to get that same middle class lifestyle for maybe a third of the money down or a tenth
Mm-hmm.
of the money down.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to buy the same quality of life for a lot less money.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that it doesn't take nearly as much money as most people
Mm-hmm.
assume to get a high quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
So I can live on around $1,000 a month,
Mm-hmm.
and I've done this consistently for a few years. And what that means is if you're working a regular job, at first for me I was earning 40K, you can be
Mm-hmm.
saving a huge chunk of that. And if you think of just
Mm-hmm.
really simple math, for
Mm-hmm.
example, if you save 50% of your income,
Mm-hmm.
then every year you work also buys you a year of freedom.
20,000. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. So, your story. You retired at 27. Was there a moment earlier you're working, the light switch went off? What caused you to head in this direction?
Yeah, so there was actually two things that really pushed me in this direction. The first was I hit a moment with myself. I had just graduated from graduate school. I was $70,000 in student loan debt, and it was actually crushing. I would feel it in my stomach. People talk about being under the weight of a load, and I would feel it, and I felt terrible. And so I resolved to myself that I would run my individual, my expenses, my life, kind of as a business until I could get free from these student loans that were just dragging me down. And a few months later, it was just really fortunate. I stumbled into a couple blogs about early retirement, and one's called Early Retirement Extreme, the other's called Mr. Money Mustache. And I basically devoured these blogs in about 2 days. It was during a work week. I was just staying up late to read them because I felt like I was taking the red pill in the Matrix. I was just
Mm-hmm.
like, I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
it was possible to not work and
Mm-hmm.
to still be able to afford life. And
Mm-hmm.
once I read that there is not only possible, but there's probably millions of people that do this. It's not really common, but many, many people do it, and it's a really repeatable thing. So I
Mm-hmm.
started making these changes that these blogs taught me.
Mm-hmm.
I went from
Uh-huh.
owning two cars to riding my bicycle everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and I moved into a less expensive
Mm-hmm.
apartment
Mm-hmm.
that was closer to my
Mm-hmm.
work. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of simple things, but you
Mm-hmm.
decrease your expenses in
Mm-hmm.
order to get free.
I see. So it's it's not necessarily super glamorous, right? There's a good amount of frugality involved, but that's the sacrifice.
Yeah.
What's the reward? What do you get out of this? What do you what do you leave behind you when you embark on this new life?
Well, so what makes it worth it for me? The sacrifice is appears to a lot of people as extreme frugality or budgeting. For me, it gives me the freedom to not have to wake up to an alarm. I didn't have to work a job just for the money. You're free in terms of location as well.
Mhm.
And for me, that was worth it because I hated being stuck in a job, being like, have to wake up at a certain time,
Mhm.
work all day, and be stuck in one spot.
Mhm.
And for me, it was worth it to say, ride my bicycle to get
Mhm.
groceries versus drive a car if the reward is, complete freedom.
Mhm. Yeah, I can relate to that, man. I mean, I have a bicycle, right? I'm doing similar things, obviously. As far as expenses go, it's like you don't need necessarily a ton of money to have an awesome life. But then some people, a good amount of people are questioning, well, say I want to expand, I want to bring life into this world, I want to raise a family, I want to give them a good life. How does that affect the $1,000 a month? Or, a lot of people are probably thinking, he's just going to have to go back to work later on, and then he's going to have these unexplainable gap years in his resume or whatever. What do you say to that?
Yeah, so everybody says that. Everybody says something like that. They'll mention either, okay, but you're going to get married, right? Or you're going to have kids, right? And then it's going to blow this all up.
Mm-hmm.
And it really doesn't blow it up. What it might do is you might have to work, say, an extra year while saving money
Mm-hmm.
at your traditional job.
Mm-hmm.
But those two guys that I read those blogs,
Mm-hmm.
Early Retirement Extreme,
Mm-hmm.
that guy is married and he only ever earned money as like a grad student, and he's able to afford a house now, I think. Mr. Money Mustache is a different guy. He's married and has a kid. He lives in Longmont, Colorado in like $1 million house, and he's been retired since I think age 30. So he's not as early as me, but if you work until maybe age 30 instead of 27, it can afford you a lot more in terms of dollars. You can buy a more expensive house or have a kid, have a wife and kid, whatever your plan is or your goal is in life.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about the math of this so we can get into the details, break away some of the mysticism. So you're saying that you're living off of, say, $1,000. So where is that $1,000 coming from? Have you saved it, or we talk about passive income streams? And if so, is that something that can grow to, say, $2,000 later on if family needs that, right? So, or if not, or can 4 people live on 1,000? Some people are, some people make that work. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it all boils down to a really simple equation, which is, do you have more passive income coming in every month than you spend? And
right, yeah, I don't know, diagrams.
so and that number, those numbers can change, but as long as you balance that equation, then you're free and you don't really have to work a job with all of your time in order to just earn that money. In terms of how that might change over as you make changes in life, like having children and things, you could check out Mr. Money Mustache's blog. He details his family's expenses, and so he lives much more lavishly than me, for example, but he still spends only $25,000 a year, and he's been doing that consistently for as long as I've been following him, and I think for 5 or 10 years. He can afford to live in a really nice place in America, in a really nice house, and live a really fun lifestyle that includes some frivolous things like vacations and that sort of thing. But they ride their bikes everywhere. They buy like 2 tanks of gas a year, and every year they're running at about $25,000 for a family of 3.
Yeah, okay. Well, here's a question.
Okay.
I would like to have $1,000 passive income coming in. How do I set that up?
Okay. Well, so for me, I get it from a few diverse streams. Everyone does this differently. Like, you're different than me in this respect as well. For me, I had built a few websites that help people, and those websites, over time, I kept making changes as I learned more about marketing, and now they're at a point where they earn me about $500 a month of passive income. And so I don't have to do that. It just comes in my sleep. Another thing I did is, while I was saving really aggressively while I was working traditional jobs, is that I took a chunk of about $20,000 and invested it in real estate. And there's ways everyone can do this online now. You can go to like realtyshares.com. There's a bunch of sites where you can just, put chunks of money into real estate and get a residual monthly payment out of it. The most traditional way that requires a little bit more money, because it's a little lower rate of return, is to just take your money, put it into like an index fund of stocks, and then get a reliable 4% every year for forever, basically.
Yeah, by the way, to the listeners, you don't need to know how to develop websites necessarily or have tons of money. There's other ways to do it. I get it through YouTube and through Twitch, which is like live YouTube, and there's a good amount of people who set that up, talk about that in hobby monetization. But, I mean, what Tom is saying is basically, if you can get your passive income to be greater than your expenses, you are doing what you need to do, and you're even saving money at that point. So it's a math question. It's a question of balancing one equation, right?
Yeah. And more to that, people will look at me and be like, well, how did you do that? Because I had huge student loan debt. And so when I started this journey, I was actually at about a negative $72,000 net worth. So I was basically just had my student loans. I didn't really have any cash in the bank. And so I worked for 2 years at traditional type jobs, and I just saved and saved. And even now, after I've retired, my net worth is just inching up. I'm still actually at a negative net worth, but I inch up, a few $100, maybe $1,000 every month. And so maybe in a few years you'll talk to me and I'll be like, I reached zero net worth.
Nice. I mean, it's about the lifestyle, as we said. So we know there's a lot of you out there who are college graduated or not, working for the man. Maybe you have a lot of debt, and it's just like, how is there any way out of this, right? What would you say to someone like that?
There is hope. So it comes from, first of all, you need to have that motivation. For me, it was just, I hated working in traditional setups. I really hated waking up to an alarm. And so a lot of people feel that, I just don't like that. And so that gives you that motivation. And anyone who lives in, Europe, America, Australia, any of these rich countries, even on minimum wage, if you messed up my whole life and just took away all my streams of income and just gave me a minimum wage job, it would take me about 5 years to become financially independent again. So if someone's out there and they're working at a better than minimum wage job, which most people are going to be.
No, I don't know if I say most people, but
okay.
If you're fortunate, right? But
yeah,
the point is, even if you're on minimum wage, this is something that's possible with frugality and long-term thinking, 5-year plan, right?
Yeah, you don't quit your job because you hear this right away. Like,
No.
you stay in it.
Not get rich quick. No.
It's not get
Nothing
rich
like
quick.
that. Not get rich ever. Not get rich ever.
Get rich. Yeah, avoid getting rich. Yeah. Being rich isn't really that great. Like, there's a lot of advantages to being not rich in the traditional sense.
Yeah. Rich in life.
Yeah, I can afford to take a year off and travel, and I can do whatever I want at pretty much any time, and I can work with who I want. I can choose to spend my day how I want with the people I choose, and I find that way more satisfying. It's way more purposeful than, say, like, making 6 figures at whatever corporate job or whatever that be.
What's interesting is choosing to spend your time with who you want. A lot of the who you want is like, they're not free, they're, I don't know about your situation, but it's hard, which is why we have this group, right? So that you can be around people on the same goals, on the same paths, not just for the financial freedom, but the lifestyle freedom. And however you come about doing this, there's multiple directions, but again, the goal is just to live a better life, yeah.
Definitely.
So, Tom, to the people who are watching this, want to learn what you've learned and see how it's possible in their lives, how can people reach you?
Yeah, we want to help people to achieve early retirement, financial independence, whatever the type of freedom that they're seeking in their lives. So if you want to schedule an introductory consultation, click here, and it'll take you to freelivinggoals.com/Tom. And you can sign up for a time there.
Yeah, and I mean, again, Tom at 27, I've never heard of anyone doing it this young. It's crazy. It sounds unbelievable. You can see it's definitely possible. It's not what you think. It's not a rich financial lifestyle, but it affords a lot of freedoms. So for those of you who are into that, you should definitely reach out to Tom. And of course, you should join the group, the Free Living group, Freedom Lifestyle group. Links to that below. Thank you all so much. And if you have any questions, you can ask Tom. Have any questions for me, you can ask me. And we will see you in the group.